All right, so a lot has been made of this Patrick Beverley situation. He got on TV. He's been talking hot stuff. A lot of good takes. Some takes are just crazy. Nonetheless, it's fun. It's funny TV. It's entertainment. And we know Chris Paul and Patrick Beverley have a little bit of a feud. We know he pushed him in the back. Pat Bev pushed Chris Paul in the back last year to end the conference finals. We know that Patrick Beverley tells these stories about how he used to bust Chris Paul up in AAU camps. And we know that Patrick Beverley is a guy who's kind of considered to be a little bit of a dirty player. We know that Chris Paul is considered to be a dirty player, but Patrick Beverley is known to be a dirty player in the public. Everybody looks at Patrick Beverley and says, hey, you're a dirty guy. And with Chris Paul, it's more of a thing where if you really watch basketball, you know that he's a dirty player, but he doesn't get labeled as such. So the point that I'm getting at is there's some animosity that Patrick Beverley has for Chris Paul because Chris Paul has a lot of the things that Patrick Beverley wishes that he had. Patrick Beverley wishes he had the image where he could get away with doing certain stuff on the court. He wishes that he had the benefit of the doubt and he got the love from the media that a Chris Paul gets. He wishes that he was the top prospect, like the chosen one that Chris Paul is when it comes to being the point guard. These are things that Patrick Beverley kind of envies of Chris Paul. So a lot of the things that Patrick Beverley says about Chris Paul in this segment and in general when he's up on TV, it comes from the place of being a hater. Now the thing is, the media never shows the bad side of Chris Paul. The media always stands up for Chris Paul because he was the former president of the Players Association and because he gives the image of the stand-up guy with the State Farm commercials. So the media is never going to give the bad side of Chris Paul, and then you got Patrick Beverley over here who's only giving the bad side of Chris Paul. So we got to angle it, and we got to find, a happy medium because this channel is all about being objective. You guys know I'm not the biggest Chris Paul fan myself, but this channel is all about being objective. So we're going to dissect what Patrick Beverley is saying here. Let's get into it.
CP3, is he going to be a Hall of Fame? No question about it. Yeah. Right? No question about it. Do guys in the NBA go to sleep early the night before playing the Phoenix Suns? Hell no.
Yeah, Patrick Beverley is good for saying some stuff that just makes you go damn. But I understand the point that he's trying to make. He's saying Chris Paul isn't like some great scorer. He's not some guy, some super explosive player. He's not a guy who's shooting from range. He's not a guy who plays with a particular style that you have to really focus in on, or he's not somebody who's showing you something different from the rest of the league. He's playing a traditional point guard style of basketball. So you, as Patrick Beverley, as a defensive point guard, you kind of know what to expect when you're guarding him. But I do think it's fair. We got to be fair, and we have to say Chris Paul in his prime was some of the best point guard play we've ever seen in NBA history. Chris Paul in his prime when he was with the New Orleans Hornets, he was insane. So we have to be fair when we're talking about Chris Paul and just, remember that he is an older guy now. You might not go to sleep early the night before playing Chris Paul now, but if you were playing Chris Paul in 2008, if you were playing Chris Paul during the Lob City days, you were going to sleep early to play Chris Paul. Patrick Beverley's not really being he's being disingenuous when he says that about Chris Paul. He needs to clarify that he's talking about right now and not in general. Because when he says Chris Paul top 5, top 10 point guard of all time, you make it sound like you're talking about Chris Paul overall for his career. Overall for Chris Paul's career, you had to go to sleep early to guard him. Nobody has to, we don't have to lie about that. But nowadays, at the pace that he plays at, he walks the ball down the court. For the most part, he's just looking to facilitate. If it's not in the mid-range, he's not really shooting the ball. If it's not on the right side of the court, he's not really being aggressive. He's not going to take it to the rim from the left side of the court. So now I understand what Patrick Beverley is saying, but we just have to add context to it.
No.
You mean as a team, or would you talk about Chris Paul individually?
Chris Paul individually.
Okay.
No.
And I'm glad he clarified that. I'm glad Stephen A. asked that because you're going to sleep early to guard Devin Booker. Nobody can tell me any different. When you have to guard Devin Booker, when you're checking Devin Booker, you have to be locked in. So I'm glad that he clarified that it's just an older Chris Paul that he's worrying about, that he's not really worrying about too much. Because the Mavericks had to double team Devin Booker just to quickly go into that Game 7 versus the Mavs. The Mavs said, hey, we're just going to give it our all. We're going to throw everything at Devin Booker right now. And we know that Chris Paul, whether it's just he's old or it's excuse making or he's injured or he's just not a clutch player, we're going to force him to have to make decisions. We're going to key in on the young stud who could drop 30, 40 points in a must-win game. And we're going to force Chris Paul to beat us. It was just a great call. They were running zone schemes where they could get two guys near Booker at all times. And they forced the other guys to step up. And we know Mikal Bridges, Crowder, Cam Johnson, as shooters as they are, these aren't guys that are really going to put the ball on the floor. So it kind of puts the Suns in a tricky spot where they have to rely on Chris Paul more than they normally would want to. When Chris Paul gets rolling in the fourth quarter versus the Pelicans or in game one versus the Mavs, it's cool because, you know, he's rolling now. He's feeling himself and he can take you all the way. But when he's not going like that, he can't just turn it on the way he used to be able to. He's an older cat now, and he's never been clutch. We know Chris Paul has never been clutch. We know that DeAndre Ayton is most likely out of there. He's probably not staying. We know there's some confrontation between him and, or I shouldn't say confrontation, but there's been some disagreements between him and the front office. There was some confrontation between him and Monty Williams on the bench during Game 7, apparently. Guys were dapping up Aiden and saying, like, you know, no matter what happens, we're always going to be cool, or, you know, it was great playing with you, things of that sort. So it sounds like DeAndre Ayton is up out of there. Maybe he wasn't giving it his all in Game 7, but the Mavs just came and smacked them in the mouth, and the Suns were never really able to recover after that. They just got obliterated. That was one of the worst Game 7 closeout situations I've ever seen before. They couldn't win a road game to save their fucking life. If you're a great all-time team, if you're one of these like juggernaut teams, if you're, you know, a number one seed, you got to win a road game at some point. They just could not win in Dallas, and then you don't defend your home court. You can't give a guy like Luka one game to win it all. He's the best player on the floor, and he proved it.
I'm going to Steak 44 over there in Phoenix. I'm gonna have me a nice little wine, probably sweat it out, and but the pregame shoot around and get ready for Chris Paul. Steph Curry, I'm going to bed at 8:00. Mom, don't call me. My girl, don't call me. I'm locked in right now. It's two different monsters. That's all.
Patrick Beverley also loves Steph Curry. You know, Patrick Beverley and Steph Curry, they were roommates during some camp or something like that, and he grew up knowing Steph Curry. So even though he's gone back and forth with Steph Curry during games, Steph Curry's really his boy.
Yeah, well, listen. He plays. I don't. So if you're going to tell me that he don't go up, you ain't going to sleep early for Chris Paul, that's fine. But what I'm saying about Chris Paul is this, and this is what can't be ignored. Quintessential point guard, floor general, make others around you better, knowing everybody's job, knowing what everybody is supposed to do, and being that elite floor general. That's not deniable. Now, what I would say to Patrick Beverley and my little brother here is being a little bit disingenuous is this.
It's a hell of a word.
Let me say, well, you understand that you're a highly intelligent brother. You act like you don't know you know exactly what the hell it means.
These cats are funny.
The point that I'm trying to make to you about it is this. No. Why do you go to sleep early for Steph Curry? Because Steph Curry can drop 40 or 50 on you. That's why. See, you go to bed early for dudes that can embarrass you, that will literally wake up or go against you the next night and take you to school. So you get up to make sure they ain't gonna do that to you.
True.
Says that's not what Chris Paul is going to do. When Chris Paul was sensational and we were going ballistic because of what he was doing in Game 2, he had 28 points and 14 assists.
Look at those stats. 9 points, 6 assists, 4 turnovers in the last 5 games of the series. That's insane. That's Jason Kidd saying this guy cannot beat us. We're going to put him in positions that he doesn't want to be in, and he's just going to struggle. What I like about the Mavs, side note, is they don't really have, Dorian Finney-Smith is a great defender, but they don't really have like some lockdown all-time defensive guys. They just have a bunch of players who buy in, and sometimes Luka doesn't buy in, but then they end up holding him accountable, or they end up finding schemes where they can hide him a little bit better. So credit to the Mavs. Great defense.
Not something you lose sleep over. That's a floor general that got a shot going, but he's still running the floor, running the team the way that you're supposed to do it. Whereas somebody like Steph Curry, you blink and he might drop 10 threes on you. You blink and he might drop 50 on you. That got Luka, for example. Luka with the 27 in the first half. Luka can drop 50 on you. Those are the dudes that you lose sleep over.
Man, ain't nobody worried about Chris Paul when he play Phoenix Suns. nobody in the NBA.
Well, what did I just say, though?
And I'm just letting you know how NBA players feel and think.
I believe you, but what I'm saying.
And that's what I love most about these guys. I know a lot of people don't like Draymond's podcast, or, I've made complaints about Draymond kind of being a little bit of a snooze fest in his podcast. But guys like Draymond, Patrick Beverley, JJ Redick's probably the best one. These guys, they give the perspective of a player who was either just in the locker room or is currently in the locker room. So it's like you get the feel now. It's like a whole nother layer to sports media where you actually get to hear the voices and the perspective of people who are in there. And when you talk about a Draymond Green or a Patrick Beverley, you're talking about the hearts of teams. Like Patrick Beverley is the heart of the Minnesota Timberwolves. They were up. They won that play-in game. They were coming with a lot of energy because of Patrick Beverley. Draymond Green has been the heart and soul for the Warriors since the start of this dynasty. So it's great hearing what guys who mean that much to a team and who are really the pulse of a team, it's great hearing what they think about situations or what's going on in their mind during games, because that's probably what's going on in the minds of the entire team.
He's finessed the game to a point where he gets all the petty calls, all the swipe throughs at the end. I mean, this guy is out, man. We gonna be honest. We want to be really honest.
Yes.
He should have fouled out. He should have fouled out. The last game, too. You see the replay against Brunson, hit him on the shoulder, hit him in the mouth, ref don't call anything. If that's me, review it. Flagrant one. If that's him, they don't call it.
Exactly, because that's what I was saying earlier. Patrick Beverley is a little envious of Chris Paul, Chris Paul's image, Chris Paul's likeness. Chris Paul gets away with things that Patrick Beverley would never be able to get away with. And that's the biggest reason why I'm not a big on Chris Paul. Chris Paul's a dirty-ass player, and he's a choker. So a guy who chokes as much as Chris Paul does and a guy who plays as dirty as Chris Paul does has this Napoleon complex about him too. I can't be a big supporter of a player like that. I know that he's the point guard, and in the regular season he's throwing dimes and orchestrating the game better than almost anyone we've ever seen, but nah, just off being a dirty-ass player and always falling short, I can't respect that.
Not get it twisted, man. He should have fouled out. He can't guard. He literally can't guard.
He can't guard.
Yeah.
He can't. Chris Paul can't guard anybody? Is that what you're saying?
Did you see that? No, he can't. Everyone knows that.
Excuse me. No.
Yeah, everybody knows that. I don't know why Stephen A's acting like that. Stephen A clearly is showing that he doesn't know that much about basketball. Chris Paul, at this phase in his career, he can't move. He can't guard nobody. They're looking for him on the switches. Just the same way that the Suns were hunting Luka down a little bit, the Mavs were completely hunting down Chris Paul. Get Chris Paul on Brunson. Get Chris Paul on Dinwiddie. Get Chris Paul on Luka. Because you can serve Chris Paul up. Chris Paul can't guard nobody. This ain't 2K where Chris Paul is an A perimeter defender. In real life, Chris Paul is a D perimeter, F perimeter defender. Chris Paul can't move no more. There was a time in Chris Paul's career where Kevin Durant, he might get switched on to Kevin Durant. Doc might want to put Chris Paul on KD, and Chris Paul would be a little bit of a pest. KD wasn't as strong at the time. He's still not that strong, but he wasn't that strong at the time. And he would have to keep the ball over his head because if it came down, Chris Paul was going to swipe at it. The refs were going to let Chris Paul be a little dirty. And he could cause a little bit of trouble. The same way that Patrick Beverley did against KD in that one playoff series when KD was with the Warriors. So Chris Paul was able to do that at one point in his career. There was a time when Chris Paul was a good defender. But now Chris Paul just gets exposed at will. Anytime you're playing a Chris Paul team in the postseason, you can go right at him. I mean, Drew Holiday made Chris Paul look little last year in the finals.
Know that. I haven't heard anybody tell me that.
Yeah, because you haven't suited up. Guys don't like to tell you all the truth. You know that. Because they scared. They scared what you going to take with it.
No, he's right about that. They will lie.
I don't care.
He's honest. They will lie. That is true. He's not lying about that.
CP can't guard nobody, man. Everybody in the NBA know that. Everybody know that.
Anybody.
What we call them? Cone. You know what you do with cones? Like when in the summertime, you got a cone. You make a move. What is the cone?
Look at Stephen A's face. Yo, Stephen A. Chris Paul is Stephen A's boy, but he's looking at Pat Bev like, damn, I can't really defend Chris Paul on this. I don't know. Stephen A. doesn't know what to say. He's flummoxed right now. He doesn't know what to say to stand up for Chris Paul right now.
Stay still.
Exactly. He's a cone. Stop playing, man. Everybody knows that. Everyone knows that. It's just y'all don't want to accept it because.
No, I don't accept that. No. I'm saying again, if you're taller than them, you're saying you can shoot over him. Obviously, that's an issue.
Give him the Ben Simmons slander. Give him the PG 13 slander. Give him the slander that you give everybody.
First of all, Watch yourself now.
Come on now. Come on now.
Don't compare CP3 to Ben
No,
Simmons.
I didn't compare. I said
Ben
the
Simmons didn't
slander.
show up.
I said the slander.
Ben Simmons didn't show up.
I said the slander.
Well, what's the slander? I'm gonna give you. If you show up, listen. You listen. You.
Greenberg is all of us right now. Look, I don't even watch this Get Up show. You know, I watch some of these debate shows. I never watched the Get Up show, but this Get Up video already has over 1 million views. This was a good one.
Consider a guy that's an elite defender. You know how I feel about
Best in the world.
Well, I wouldn't say the best in the world, but I get you. I know that you're an elite defender. I'm giving you props for that, my brother.
The best in the world.
Okay, well, you should feel that way about yourself. I don't feel that way about you, but you should feel that way about yourself.
ESPN gave me the numbers.
That you're the best in the world?
It's Giannis at 41.3% and it's Patrick Beverley at 41.9%, which means if you have the ball and Patrick Beverley is guarding, it feels like Giannis is guarding. I'm only 6 feet. What do you want me to do?
Well, I just
the greatest in the world.
I just.
Yo, you said it feels like Giannis is guarding you. It feels like Giannis is guarding you. Yo, but you know, to be real, that was funny. But to be real, you gotta have that type of confidence in yourself. I did the series Persistence Pays. I'll probably be doing more videos on that. And you have to have that type of persistence and that type of belief in yourself, that type of confidence within you when nobody else has confidence in you and nobody else has belief in you. That's how you're going to be able to get somewhere in life. Patrick Beverley, if he didn't believe in himself the same way that he does, if PJ Tucker didn't believe in himself the way that he does, these guys wouldn't be in the NBA. These guys are in the NBA because of sheer heart and will and determination and because they forced their way into the league. So that type of mindset is the reason why Patrick Beverley is second on that list. I'm assuming that list is field goal percentage. When Giannis is guarding you, players shoot 41.3%. I don't know how accurate that stat is because if you blow by a man and then you score at the basket on somebody else, who does the point get attributed to? So I would have to see exactly how they're breaking that down, but nonetheless, it's an impressive stat that Patrick Beverley is number 2 in the NBA at something defensively.
You were an elite defender. Be happy with that.
No, I can't.
Be happy with that for the moment.
Let's stay on topic.
For the moment. My point to you is this though: just because you're an elite defender doesn't mean that CP3 gets to be discredited. When you look at CP3 and what he brings to the table, do you not believe he's an elite point guard?
Well, go get someone who's not an elite defender and have him up here talking to you. Y'all got Patrick Beverley up here. I'm going to give you Patrick Beverley truth. I can't give you the next man truth.
But you're comparing him to you.
Exactly. All I can do is give you my perspective.
CP3, I'm talking about defensive. I'm saying defensively. In other words, if you're sitting there saying that, sure. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on that. But what I'm saying is most people don't defend like Patrick Beverley.
Okay.
So because of that, I can look at him and in its totality, looking at the NBA and a body of individuals that play in the NBA with all of these dudes like literally asking them. It's like asking them to do, I don't even know what to come up with to ask them to play some defense. You going to tell me that CP3 can't defend compared to most of the NBA? I beg to differ. And I think you do too when you compare him to most of the NBA. There's a whole bunch of cats in the NBA that can't defend.
No, you could compare Chris Paul to the average, role player in the NBA, or, because role players usually have to play defense to get on the court. You could compare Chris Paul to the average starting point guard in the NBA because these guards can't really guard each other with the way that the style of play is now and the way that it's officiated. It's hard for these guys to really guard each other because they can't put hands on each other and because of the pace and space of the game. But you could compare Chris Paul to the average guy at his position, and he's a terrible defender in comparison to the average point guard in the NBA. I mean, Chris Paul, he can't stay in front of anybody. And these guys, they can't guard each other, but Chris Paul can't stay in front of anybody. So we don't need to compare Chris Paul to the greats or Chris Paul, to the Steph Curry or, the top point guards in the NBA. You could just compare Chris Paul to the average, to the average defense from the average player in the NBA. Chris Paul does not compare. You go right past Chris Paul. You go right through Chris Paul. Unless he's getting a call, you're going to score on him.
Him to top 10 greatest point guard ever.
Okay, all right.
I'm not looking at.
But that's different. That's different. You said the man can't defend.
No, I'm not saying that. But now you want me to take what CP is and put him in a bottle with everyone else. I won't do that. I would not do that. Okay. I'm going to judge him based off exactly what you guys tell me that he is. He's a top 5 point guard. Some say arguably, some say it's not arguably. He's a top 10 point guard in all time. And what would John Stockton do?
Exactly. But once again, what would the average point guard in the NBA do? They would play much better defense than Chris Paul does. Chris Paul is not effective on that side of the court anymore. And, they're going over different point guards. They're talking about John Stockton. John Stockton took his team to the finals twice. John Stockton, as Stephen A is about to say, John Stockton was a rough rider. John Stockton was a gamer. He was clutch. So I might have to take John Stockton over Chris Paul, even though before all these choke jobs by Chris Paul, or if you took these choke jobs away, it would be hard for me to say that because, in your average regular season game, I would take Chris Paul over John Stockton for sure. But at the end of the day, this is about the postseason and this is about winning. So give me John Stockton over Chris Paul. Give me Jason Kidd over Chris Paul. We know Jason Kidd took the Nets to the finals. We know Jason Kidd won a championship with the Mavs as a big part of the team. He might not have been the star. That was Dirk. But he was a starter on that team. Jason Kidd has winning intangibles. He's just a smart player. Jason Kidd, one of the best point guards in NBA history. Give me Kidd. Give me Stockton. Give me Steph, of course. Don't have to get into it. Give me Magic. Give me Zeke. Bad Boy Pistons. Don't even have to get into it. That's 5 point guards off the top of my head that I take over Chris Paul. Now I would probably take Chris Paul over Steve Nash. But Steve Nash at his peak, the best Steve Nash season versus the best Chris Paul season is pretty fucking close. It's pretty fucking close. I might have to even go Steve Nash. But Chris Paul overall, I'd take Chris Paul over Steve Nash.
Stockton could defend. He was a rough rider.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
I'm just
He was a
asking
rough
what
rider.
would he do?
But I think offensively, his skill set didn't compare to CP3.
I agree.
Offensively,
But what would John Stockton do?
he was a dog.
That's all I'm saying.
Question. He was.
That's all I'm saying.
No question about it.
What would John Stockton do?
But listen. Well, last night, listen. I would have loved to have you here after game 2, as opposed to after they just got blown out in game 7.
But I said this on the show when I was in LA.
Okay.
NBA Today. I tweeted this after game 2. This is a very interesting series. It's a very interesting series.
Okay.
If I'm the coach, and no discredit to Monty, hell of a coach.
Hell of a coach. Hell of a coach.
No. Wrong word. If it's a word better than hell, I don't know what. A heaven of a coach.
Okay.
You understand? Like phenomenal coach.
Good.
I'm not playing CP, not as much.
Yeah, and I don't blame him for that take, but the problem is campaign is horrible. And Holiday joined the team like halfway through the season, so I don't know how ready he was. They do have Elfrid Payton, but Elfrid Payton, he's a defensive point guard. I don't really know if you can trust him to run any type of offense. So they didn't have a lot of options. Booker, he can handle the ball a little bit, but he gets flummoxed. He can't do it for a long period of time, especially against intense defense. He has to resort back to being a shooting guard. And the Suns, they got a lot of things to figure out in the summer. DeAndre Ayton's probably out of there. I would move off of Chris Paul, or I would try to get in another guard who could relieve a lot of those Chris Paul minutes, but they're probably not going to do that. They're probably going to run back with most of the same squad except for DeAndre Ayton. I'm thinking the only change that they'll have will be at the center spot, but we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. The Patrick Beverley segments on ESPN have been very interesting. They've been fun segments. This one was a good one, him going at Chris Paul. And once again, he's coming from the stance of a hater. I'm not a big Chris Paul guy. We know Stephen A is coming from the stance of loving Chris Paul and being on his side. So I just tried to come on here and show some type of objectivity and really just dissect what he was saying and give the real about Chris Paul. So also, we'll see how the Western Conference Finals shape up, if the Mavs were just able to get past the Suns because the Suns suck, or maybe the Mavs are just some amazing team and they're about to knock the Warriors off. So we'll see. Thanks for watching. Peace.